5 creepy mall stories. These stories have been sent in by subscribers or by friends of mine. If you would like to have a story narrated, please post it on my subreddit page r/littlespooklings or email it to me. I hope you enjoy these stories. Story 1. Kmart Entertainment. My friends and I would often go late night shopping at Kmart. I know, not very exciting. None of us wanted to go to the parties that were happening at the time. Not that any of us really partied all that much anyway. This evening, there were the 3 of us who decided to take the not-so-long journey. I'm a 17-year-old girl, and my 2 friends are 16 and 18. My eldest friend who drove us there, since she is the only one with a full license and a car. You may guess where we're from because we went out on a Macca's run beforehand, so yeah, we're Aussies. It was quieter during this time of night, and sometimes there were many bargains to be found. Usually we wanted to get snacks and other random things we didn't really need. When we pulled up into the car park, it was practically deserted, except for a couple of cars. They were all parked closer to the entrance, and we parked further away from them. My friend is absolutely terrible at parking, so it was easier this way. Again, there was nothing out of the ordinary. We walked into Kmart and instantly started making nuisances of ourselves. I'm pretty sure the small group of us bought enough lollies or sweets to feed an army. I got a toaster I didn't need, blankets, and a heap of other things. My 2 friends who came with me also made ridiculous purchases, enough for us all to share a trolley cart. We paid for our items and walked back into the parking lot. It was easy to find our car in the deserted car park. More of the cars had gone and there was only 1 car besides our own. We weren't alone. There was a car beside ours with a man seated inside, and there were 2 other men who stood by the window. Each of them were leaning on the car. They were chatting and seemed to mind their own business. We figured they were here for the same reasons we were. When we got to the car, they started walking towards us, calling out to us if we wanted to go to a party with them. Maybe we should have just ignored them. All of us got in the car and started to get ready to go home. The problem was, they had already blocked our path out, and I had a sinking feeling in my stomach. One of them started tapping something on the windows. My friend driving wasn't really a combative person by nature. In fact, she's the least combative out of all of us. She isn't really street smart either and began to wind down her window to talk to them. Friendly and completely oblivious to the danger we were in, I whispered to her to just fucking drive. She was more worried about hurting them than managing to get away safely. I, on the other hand, didn't care in the slightest. I will get in someone's face if they try something with me. Our friend in the back seat of the car was also silent. I don't think she knew what to do. I pressed the window down and told them where to go until I saw a knife in their hands. Instantly I pulled back and pressed for the button to go back up. It finally shut. He screamed and struck the window with it. We screamed at our friend to drive, and she did. We had to get out of there. As she did so, she sped around a corner and hit a bin or something in the process. We were all shaking, especially my friend in the driver's seat. We drove around for a while until we were absolutely sure there was no way they could have followed us. We drove to the police station and made a police report. Unfortunately, this sort of thing isn't uncommon in the local area. Knife crimes had gone up in recent years, and it wasn't uncommon for men to try to lure women into their cars. We had heard of other young women this has happened to. Unfortunately, we didn't join their number. So, yeah, all of our parents' warnings about being careful were important to listen to. We should have been more careful. That being said, it didn't stop us from going out on our late night adventures. We would travel further to one of the other Kmarts and always double check the parking lots for creeps and other weirdos. Remember to stay safe, lock your doors, and don't talk to strangers. Story 2. The Christmas Stinker. I'm pretty terrible when it comes to time management and planning. I always have been. Like always, I left Christmas shopping to the last minute rather than getting it out of the way sooner. My mistake. This happened the year before last, before all the lockdowns had taken over, and it's funny how much the world changed. I looked online and unfortunately, the items wouldn't be here before Christmas, and it was for my younger brother, so I had to have it on Christmas Day. Otherwise, I would have just left it until the new year. Anyway, I managed to collect the last couple of presents, until I had to pick one last one up from lay-by. I went and stood in the ridiculously long line, and waited with the other customers. While I did so, there was a pretty unkempt man standing nearby. He was absolutely feral, and smelled disgusting to a point where I could feel my stomach turn. He had long messy hair, a filthy beard, and I don't think he'd washed his clothes in a long time. Still, I had been waiting for quite a long time. I didn't want to go to the end of the line and have to wait even longer. So I stood there ignoring him and his unpleasant aroma. You know when someone tries to lean in to try to gain your attention when you're ignoring them? He kept doing that to me, and I kept pretending I didn't see him. Naturally, the other people standing in line did nothing to help. Hey. I pretended I didn't hear him. He leaned closer to try to get my attention and wouldn't get the damn hint. I didn't want to talk to him and his breath was sickening. Hey, I'm talking to you. I was tired, my feet hurt, and the last thing I wanted to deal with was the stranger to soap. I rolled my eyes, sighed and said, "Hello, look, I'm sorry, I just want to get my lay-by and go home." It was kinda rude to be honest, but I didn't care. He, funnily enough, seemed to sulk about it and moved away from me before walking off. Unfortunately, the stench took longer to finally leave. I got to the counter, handed over my ticket and told the cashier what had happened. Given the fact it was Christmas and nothing really that bad had happened, I don't think she cared, and I didn't really blame her either. I made it through the long lines at the checkouts, finally paying for the last present and made my way to the car. All I was thinking about was getting home and being able to relax. I was distracted with my thoughts and I wasn't happy. I grumbled to myself, and I should have said something earlier. I'm a young woman in my late 20s. As I walked through the crowds to make my way back to the car park, I smelled a familiar and distinct smell I'd recognized from before. That same sickening smell. He was back, this time with a leering grin. I looked around to see if there was anyone who could help me, and I'm also not someone who will stand by to be mistreated if there is help available. I saw a security guard and immediately went over to him, told him that this man had been following me and tried to point him out in the crowd. I couldn't find him. Given how busy the holiday season was, he was lost in the thick crowd of people and I lost track of him. The security guard offered to walk me to my car and I was about to agree when someone decided to shoplift. Naturally, he was occupied with his job and I didn't want to hold him back any further. I gave him a friendly wave of farewell and said thanks, while I walked through the automatic doors. Besides, the smelly creeper wasn't around anymore. I'd be able to get to my car safely. The car park was still filled with people, and I had to walk to the furthest edge. I don't like parking close with lots of people, and my parking abilities are pretty bad at best. Normally, I don't like having other people around, but I couldn't escape the feeling that I was being watched. I kept looking around me. There were people around, but as I got closer to my car, I know this is pretty tame in comparison to a lot of stories. Anyway, I got in the car, went home, and had a nice Christmas. There is more to this story. Unfortunately, there were sales around the new year, and I saw him again. He tried following me around. This time, he didn't say anything. Even when I demanded to know why, he just kept giving me that creepy smirk. I got inside my car, locked it, and noticed he stopped to watch me. Not moving, not doing anything. Just that creepy smirk. I turned the car on, he just waved at me. Didn't move, didn't shout anything at me. He just stared at me and I drove away. Fortunately, I haven't seen him since and I don't want to. Maybe it was just a prank for not giving him the time of day, or maybe It was the warning of something to come. Stinky dude, stay the hell away from me, you weirdo. Story 4. Give us a kiss. I don't like going to the mall at the best of times. I'm a complete homebody, and would prefer staying home any day. This happened before all the lockdowns took place, so we were still able to go out easily. There were issues with my delivery from a store that will remain nameless. They told me to come into the store itself to show them, rather than relying on the pictures I sent them. And I wasn't happy about it. Just why? I ordered delivery in the first place so I didn't have to go outside and leave the damn house. Anyway, I got there and it was pretty packed. There was a sale on, so with the box in tow I walked in and waited in line with the other customers. There were at least 10 people in front of me. The line was moving at a snail's pace and I just wanted to go home. There were kids screaming and running around. Naturally, their parents weren't doing anything to stop them. Long story short, I spent about an hour in line and then had to reason with the salesperson. After getting it sorted out, I got the item I paid for and was about to leave. I didn't park in the car park that had multiple levels. There's always something about them that has always creeped me out and I don't like it, so I parked on the street instead. It was the late afternoon and it was beginning to get dark, but it wasn't quite nighttime yet. I hope I'm explaining this right. I walked back to my car when I heard a group of teenage boys behind me. I glanced back at them and they were a fair bit away from me and looked to be minding their own damn business. Still, I've always been pretty wary of strangers. I got to the car, unlocked it, and put my box in the back seat. It was heavy and I struggled for a little while, but I noticed a man with a cane walking past. I made sure to give him enough room so he wouldn't have to step into the little garden nearby, and smiled, trying my best to be friendly. I didn't want him to think that he was a nuisance or that I tried to hurt him or something. But suddenly he stopped. I looked over my shoulder and waited to see what he wanted. I asked, you okay? He said, yeah. Could you help me get home? Just a short drive? I hate being asked this question by friends, so the idea of a stranger asking me this was completely out of the question. Thing was though, he was limping and had a cane, so walking probably was hard for him. I closed the door and frowned. I could call someone? I'm sorry, I don't feel comfortable driving someone I don't know. He nodded and I gave him that little smile shrug thing to apologize. Before I knew it, he fell to the ground with a yell and I rushed over to help him up. Right at that moment, I felt like an absolute piece of shit for letting this happen. Hey, are you okay? Sorry, I'll take you. Before I could do anything, he grabbed my arm suddenly and pulled me close to him. He tried to kiss me. I screamed and told him to get the fuck off me. I punched him in the face and kneed him in the groin as hard as I could. He groaned and called me a fucking bitch. When I got away, I went straight to my car, got in, and sped away as fast as I could. Before you ask, yes, I made a police report. And what scared me most was, it was very similar to what some serial killer did when he was on the hunt for victims. I never want to see that guy ever again.
The rise of online shopping unfortunately meant that many malls and smaller shopping centers were slowly beginning to shut down. I would frequently visit the small food court and other stores that barely hung on. I guess I've always been nostalgic for that part of my childhood to blossom once more. The mall wasn't as well maintained as it used to be. Fewer people went there, so not as many security guards and the like. I ordered my favorite Chinese food on the app and I went to pick it up. There weren't a lot of people around at this time. Each time there always seemed to be fewer and fewer people there. Already the stores that were still open for business had closed for the evening. I sat in the food court and the ladies recognized me as I was a frequent customer and told me they were running a little late. I wasn't bothered. These things happen sometimes. I decided to take a little wander around the place, and I asked them to send me a text when my food was ready. They agreed, and I began my idle wandering around. I looked down the dark, empty spaces and saw on the walls the advertisements from 2017, sometimes earlier, sometimes later. I tried to make out what some of the stores were. I recognized a JCPenney's and some other department stores. I remembered how much time I wasted in these sorts of places as a teenager, and began to remember how I never thought those places would ever close. I heard a bang and some shuffling, and I looked to see one of the doors of the closed shops move. The dusty and old close sign moved, and I wondered whether it was a security guard checking the place. I had a weird feeling in my stomach, and decided to walk back the way that I came. I heard shuffling feet behind me, and I began to realize that I was being followed. I wouldn't say that I'm a particularly big guy. I'm pretty average, but I know how to defend myself. I heard hushed voices behind me, and they were saying things like, "Quick, get him," and "Hurry up before he gets away." I turned around to see 3 men hiding and instantly quickened my pace. I ran back towards the food court, and while I ran, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. There wasn't much in the way of security these days. When I got back, I heard my phone vibrate and went to pick up my food order. I told the worker what had happened, and she told me that the mall had become more dangerous. She always insisted that her son walk her home. I nodded in agreement, thanked her, and took my food out into the car park. I turned around to see the same 3 men that I had seen earlier. I didn't waste any time. I took my bag and headed straight towards my car. I ignored them as they called out to me and tried to get my attention. I heard them running behind me, cursing me. One of them gripped my arm. I've done some self-defense, and I managed to get out of his grasp. Since there were 3 of them, I didn't want to risk getting into a fight. I managed to get into my car, closed the door, and instantly locked it. My heart was pounding in my chest. When I turned the key to start the car, I looked over at them, and they were slinking back into the shadows again. The hair on the back of my arm stood up. I decided to order in when I wanted food or to go somewhere safer. I'll miss the food for sure, but I've made a report and haven't heard anything. I hope to never have an experience like that ever again.
I would very much like to thank my guest, As the Raven Dreams, everyone's favorite bird. Check him out if you haven't already. His content is well worth it. This video was made with the support of my Patreons. If you would like to join them, please check out the link below. I also have a merch store available. Again, links in the description. Don't forget to like and comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Stay safe, my little spooklings. And remember, I'll be watching you.